Did you know, in deadly conditions where seconds mattered, these men put their lives in the hands of a watch? Before the 1900s, water was the ultimate enemy and no-go zone for the watches. Even a little moisture could destroy the movement, let alone salty sea water. That changed in the early 20th century, as swimming, naval operations, and underwater exploration became more common. First major turning point came in 1926, when Rolex introduced groundbreaking Oyster case, the first truly waterproof wristwatch case. It wasn't a dive watch yet, but it laid the foundation. Rolex equipped a female swimmer, called Mercedes Gleitze, with an Oyster watch during her swim across the English Channel. In 1932, Omega released the Marine, one of the first watches specifically designed for underwater use. It used a patented sliding double case design, sealed with a cork, that was successfully tested to depths of 73 meters in Lake Geneva, and later up to 136 meters. It was primitive, but still very effective. Dive watches weren't created for style, they were tools born from necessity, and during the World War II, elite naval units like Italian and German frogmen needed reliable timing devices underwater for coordinating attacks, timing oxygen supply, synchronizing missions, and spying on the enemy. That's when Panerai stepped in. In 1936, they were producing large, ultra-legible watches with glowing dials, the Radiomir models, with luminous radium-based dials for the purposes of the Italian Navy. These weren't luxury items, they were survival tools. Then came the real breakthrough. In 1953, Blancpain released the 50 Fathoms. This model could go 91 meters or 300 feet underwater, which was considered the maximum safe diving depth on the oxygen tanks at the time. The name was also inspired by Shakespeare's The Tempest. This was the first true modern dive watch. It introduced features we still use today on all diver watches: a rotating bezel to track dive time, high water resistance, easy to read dial underwater with strong luminescence material, automatic movement, and this novelty also had anti-magnetic protection. That same year, Rolex launched the legendary Submariner, which helped popularize dive watches globally, especially after being worn by James Bond and many others in early films. Now, dive watches weren't just tools, they were slowly becoming popular and fashion trend was also created. The invention of modern scuba gear by Jacques Cousteau in 1940s and 50s made diving more accessible. They became essential tools for recreational divers, scientists, underwater explorers. Brands like Doxa, Seiko and Omega pushed innovation further with better visibility, bright orange dials, higher depth ratings and helium escape valves. Today, divers mostly use modern tough diver computers. But dive watches, they never disappeared. Dive watches evolved from pure tools into style icons. Dive watches remain popular because they represent engineering excellence, adventure and exploration, and above all, timeless design. Models like Submariner, Seamaster and Seiko Prospex carry decades of heritage rooted in real underwater survival. As a result, when it comes to watch types, diver watches represent a large portion of watch market, in some cases becoming luxurious commodity. Ironically, many of them will never see the water or any type of diving, but it is an excellent example of how a survival tool became a status symbol. Honestly, that might be the coolest evolution in watch history. Follow for more. Did you know that men once refused to wear wristwatches because they were considered too feminine? Until the brutal war changed everything. Before the 1900s, men didn't wear watches on their wrists. They carried pocket watches, often from brands like Waltham or Longines, tucked into their coats, attached to the chain. Pulling it out was the part of the style, almost ritual-like. While wristwatches were basically considered jewelry, small, decorative and worn mostly by women. The first true wristwatch was created in 1810 for Caroline Muret by Breguet. And even those early wristwatches from Breguet were designed more like elegant bracelets than tools. In fact, men who wore them were sometimes mocked. But then came the World War I, and suddenly everything changed. On the battlefield, soldiers didn't have time to reach into their pockets. They needed time instantly, sometimes under fire. so they had to improvise. They strapped watches to their wrists using leather bands, and these became known as the trench watches, many made by brands like Omega and Elgin. They weren't just convenient, they were crucial for coordinating attacks, timing movements, sinking artillery. Everything depended on precision. These watches evolved fast. Luminous dials were added so soldiers could read them in the dark. Metal grills protected the glass. Many early trench watches were literally converted pocket watches with soldered lugs added after the production. Pilots also needed both hands when flying, so wristwatches became essential in aviation as well. Models like Cartier Santos, originally designed by Louis Cartier for aviator Alberto Santos-Dumont, became icons of this new era. What was once feminine became a tool for survival. When the war ended, soldiers came home, but they didn't go back to pocket watches. They kept wearing wristwatches. Brands took notice. And soon after, brands like Rolex pushed durability even further, with waterproof designs like the Rolex Oyster. Almost overnight, everything flipped. Wristwatches went from a fashion accessory to a military essential. The crazy part is that this entire shift happened in less than 10 years. Today, we don't even think about it, but every time you check your watch, whether it's Omega or a Rolex or even a simple field watch, you're wearing something shaped by war and innovation, and one of the fastest cultural shifts in history. Here are some mind-blowing wristwatch and horology facts. Did you know that a mechanical wristwatch is basically a tiny machine on your wrist? Inside, there are average around 100 to 300 small parts, all working together with zero electronics. In fact, the core concept is older than the steam engine. First portable watch was made in 1510 by Peter Henlein, often called the Nuremberg Egg. At the heart of it all is the mainspring. When you wind the watch, you're tightening this spring, storing energy. As it slowly unwinds, it releases that energy in a controlled way, powering the entire movement. There are two kinds of movement, manual winding and automatic, which with the help of a rotor winds the watch as you wear it. That stored energy is called the power reserve. Depending on the watch, it can last anywhere from 24 hours to several days, even longer on some high-end pieces. For example, a Langazona Langa 31 has power reserve of 31 days, and it uses a massive mainspring barrel that requires a special key to wind, too much torque for the fingers. But here's where it gets really fascinating. Mechanical watches can also have complications, extra features beyond telling time. Things like chronograph for timing events, moon phase display, or even perpetual calendar that tracks dates perfectly for decades. These watches can mess up more than a couple of thousand parts. Like Vacheron Constantin Berkeley Grand Complication. This watch has 2,877 components, 63 complications, and took over 8 years to develop. It is a product of pure mechanical genius, and that's what makes mechanical watches everlasting and timeless.